Okay, I have a few things to tell you about the Unit 5 exam, which is now live on Neo, and I'll try to keep this one brief. First of all, I need to remind you that your current term grade is based entirely on just a few assignments. So think about what that would mean for the math, given that we have weight to each of these categories. Um, if there was a single warm-up and you had failed to turn it in, that's a zero point 0.1 impact in total point value. But because the warm-ups are like 30% of your grade, if you had missed one warm-up on an assignment of one warm-up, that single warm-up would cost you 30% of the grade. Or if you did poorly on one exam category is half of your grade right now. So if you got a D on this exam and otherwise are perfect, your grade would be a high C or a low B. It can be really discouraging when your grade has these tremendous fluctuations, but I need you to understand that those are a mathematic artifact. They're not really relevant. By the time you've been in the class all term, you'll have a bunch of warm-up points and a bunch of homework points and a whole bunch of exam points. And so I've got kids with A's right now that probably won't keep them, and I've got kids with F's right now that certainly will raise those grades. Mathematically, the grades right now are really irrelevant. Also remember that your multiple choice and free response columns will display a letter grade, which is irrelevant. So on the multiple choice, if you got a 25 out of 100, that's an F, but it's a perfect score. It's silly, I'll explain sometime, whatever, just ignore those. There's three columns: multiple choice, free response, neither of those matters. And then there's the total. That one does matter. That's out of whatever the total was. I can't remember where we curved your exams. You take the multiple choice, add the free response doubled. So for example, an 18 plus 8 doubled to 16 would equal a 34. Free response plus, multiple choice plus free response doubled gives you your total. That one matters. As far as the exam itself, I have almost nothing to tell you. In the multiple choice, there were a couple of questions that had, 25% students not getting it, I think 30%. But overall, I think I taught to this exam very well. It seems like students were well prepared for all of the questions, nothing particularly heinous. You can see those scores in AP Classroom. And then in the free response question, kids did the most poorly on C, describing demographic transition, which is a little frustrating because there was a movie that had a thing about it and then a big lecture about it. And I warned everybody this is always on the AP test, where birth and death rates are both high and then death rates drop first and eventually birth rates come down. And that's how you go from a pre-industrial to a stage 2, stage 3 in an industrialized country. In question D about an incentive that the government could offer, I think a lot of students just don't know what incentive means. It's a vocab problem. Incentive is something you do to encourage someone. It's not a punishment or a penalty. It's like a reward. So an incentive to clean your room is, I'll buy you ice cream. But if you say, clean your room or I'll break your fingers, that's not an incentive, that's a threat of punishment. So I think some students were confused by that. Overall, in question A, some students didn't discuss the shape. They said theoretically what would cause growth, but not how you can see growth. Likewise in B with infant mortality. You'll need these numbers. Get ready to write this down. In A, there were 4 points possible. Which country explained based on the shape? Which country explained based on the shape? In B, there were 2 points possible. Compare X and Y and explain why. In C, there was a single point. Explain what happens in the transition with both birth and death rates. Single point for C. And in D, there were 3 points. Give an incentive, explain how it would work, and explain a possible drawback. And really, possible drawbacks were pretty wide open. You could have said almost anything. That's it. You guys did really well. I want to give you some props for something. I'm sorry to leave this to the end. I want to give you some props for something. Overall, as a class, students have gotten way better at taking the exams. You break up your questions better, you're much more direct, you babble less, and you refer to content from the course more explicitly. That's important. I want you to remember what I just said. You break up your parts into individual answers. You answer them briefly and directly. You refer to content from the course, and you try to stick to exactly what the questions are asking for. Overall, you know, some kids misunderstood, some kid made mistakes, 1 or 2 kids are still struggling to get the format right. But honestly, I think that you guys have come a really long way with the testing, and this is encouraging because we've got exam 6 coming up soon, then 7, 8, 9. I think that there's a 10, and then it's AP exam time. I'm pretty stoked. I think you guys are doing really well. The curve on these exams, on this exam, was high in both of my periods. So yeah, thanks for doing a great job. That's all.